Mario Kart World is an amazing game, which is a weird thing for me to say because I think I hate it. Mixed messages. Okay, let me explain. Hello, by the way. So, hate is maybe a bit too strong a word, but I certainly am baffled and frustrated and honestly a little bit scared. Yeah, that's right, scared. More on that in a bit. But at the same time, I think Mario Kart World is tremendous fun. It feels amazing and it looks lush. But sometimes the fun in it is quite hard to find. Because Mario Kart World is a bit of a mess. There are some really flawed design decisions, and for me, it's a 7 out of 10. But the really frustrating thing is, with just a few small fixes, it could easily be a 10. Here is a prime example of an easily fixable flaw. The music. In this game, there's over 200 songs, a jukebox consisting of live band recordings, remixes, and new arrangements from Mario's entire back catalogue. It's amazing. At least I think it is. Can't really hear it. It's too quiet. All this amazing music and it's just sitting way too low in the mix, and it's really hard to hear over the sound of the kart engines and banana skins and stuff, and there's no way to adjust it. And that really typifies the problems that I have with Mario Kart World. Really solid foundation, quite shoddy implementation. And it feels like it falls short in almost all aspects compared to its predecessor, the brilliant Luigi Kart 8 Deluxe.
Luigi Kart 8!
So much so, in fact, that fans are even postulating that this isn't even a true sequel, and it is in fact a spin-off from the main series. This is of course preposterous because I have an uncle who works at Nintendo and he says that it is a true sequel, so there you go. But I really think Mario Kart World could be the best entry in the series if it weren't for a number of annoying snags. Fat snags. So then, what's niggling me to death about Mario Kart World? So the big thing about Mario Kart World is the big Mario Kart World. The vibe from the developers was that they had perfected the formula of having players race around individual courses, and now they wanted the gameplay to involve players driving around a large world. Fair enough. Nice idea, sounds fun. I would buy an entirely new console just to play that. And you know what? I quite like the world. It's a really fun game space, all vibrant and charming and stuff, despite the fact that the explorable world has been at the forefront of a lot of criticism in how it feels empty and boring. But I actually enjoy little stints of free roam, doing little challenges, collecting stickers, and seeing landmarks like Peach's castle on the horizon during sunset, while a nostalgic song plays too quietly in the background. It's really lovely, and it's a relaxing diversion from the chaos of the main modes. Ever wondered what the underneath of Sky High Sunday looks like? Bam! No, me neither, but now we know. However, when it comes to the aforementioned main modes, despite the developers' efforts to preserve the immaculate formula of Mario Kart 8, their enthusiasm for the big interconnected world that they've created has somewhat sullied that perfect formula. For instance, the biggest complaint I have, along with a great many other players, is the lack of a traditional Grand Prix mode. 3 lap races across 4 courses in succession. This has now been replaced with some half-breed Grand Prix where only a portion of it is spent actually racing the courses, and the rest of the time is spent racing along the interconnected roads in order to get to the courses. So a typical 3-lap race has now become a 1-lap race, preceded by 2 intermissions, as they're called. And these intermissions are fine and everything, sometimes a bit straight, sometimes a bit wide, but the biggest irk is that it just makes the Grand Prix mode feel like a half-assed version of the new Knockout Tour mode, and it seems the developers are intent on making people drive on all the interconnected back roads and freeways at every opportunity. We built this world, and you're going to drive on it every which way, yes sirree Bob. The Mario Kart developers, probably. And so this results in a Grand Prix mode that feels somewhat diluted, because when you're only racing 1 lap on a course, it's quite hard to get a sense of that course. And the intermissions are seamless because it's a big interconnected world after all, so it's almost impossible to tell where an intermission ends and an actual course begins. And that makes the courses feel indistinct. Like, I can't really tell which course is which because they all sort of blend into one another. I'd compare World's Grand Prix to an album with no breaks, where each song blends into the next one to make one big track. Yes, that could be a cool musical Odyssey journey type thing, but overall, it would lessen the impact of the songs themselves, don't you think? For example, let's take a classic album, one with no skips. Let's say, The Best of the Beatles. But then, what if it was like all just one big long song? So you'd have like one verse of Heartbreak Motel and then 2 minutes of walking bass line and Ringo drum fills until you get to one verse of Mbop. And then it's like 2 minutes of more drum fills and then you finally finish with a chorus of Hey Hey with the Monkees. My Beatles knowledge is lacking, but you get the picture. The impact of the tracks are diminished and the Grand Prix overall feel a bit lacking in substance. And it doesn't really feel like you've raced a Grand Prix at all. It feels kind of just like Knockout Tour. And as a result of this, I felt for a long time that I didn't really feel accustomed to any of the courses. There are obviously a few distinguishing features that I can recall, like the waterfall bit and that underground lake bit, but actually I couldn't tell you where these sections occur or whether or not they're actually part of the courses or in fact just more intermissions. Consequently, Rainbow Road is the best course in the game because it's actually removed from the world, floating above and disconnected from any pesky intermissions. So you see, as much as Nintendo has done a great job in creating an interconnected Mario Kart world that's seamless and coherent and feels alive with night-day cycle, weather effects, trees, homeless Shy Guys and Yoshis, it doesn't feel particularly memorable. So as I previously mentioned, the intermissions are sometimes a bit straight and a bit wide, sometimes very wide, and as the series is pretty well ingrained with drifting around lots of corners in a satisfying way, the developers have had to mitigate any potential boredom that might occur while driving on these straight and wide roads by making driving in a straight line equally satisfying. And how they've done this is by allowing the player to perform various tricks, like wall riding, rail grinding, and a charge jump. The devs say they were inspired by skateboarding, where tricking opens up possibilities for how you can travel around a city, like grinding on a barrier or on telephone lines or driving on a wall. But the problem is, none of these things really do it for me in Mario Kart World. More often than not, rail grinding or wall riding just seems a bit too far out of the way to make it worthwhile. And if you fudge up the execution or don't stick the landing, you could easily find yourself crashing through the barrier or driving into the wall instead of on it. And then you can say goodbye to your first place crown and your virtual Mario Kart balls, because the risk-reward ratio leans too heavily in the risk most of the time. And the charge jump itself could only be likened to skateboarding if it took Tony Hawk 5 seconds to charge up an ollie, which it might. He is getting on a bit. It takes too long to charge and it slows you down while it's charging, and it just feels like there's plenty of ramps and boost pads around to negate the need for it anyway. And it's weird because the tricking feels really satisfying when you pull it off. And I've actually gone back to Mario Kart 8 as a comparison, and it actually feels quite lacking without it. But at the same time, I do feel it's underutilised and kinda pointless in World, so well done Nintendo, I don't know how you've done that. Conversely, there is a really great bit in the DK Spaceport track where there's a purposefully crafted section for you to wall ride and jump from side to side. But other than that, aside from the occasional railing, it's just straight up driving in a straight line for a while. So my suggestions for spicing up the intermission sections are as follows. Make them 200cc. Just pure ramp up the speed and make them really intense, so it's just like a mad rush to get to the next course. Like there's a portion of Bowser's Castle where it feels like you're really hurtling around the course at tremendous speeds, and it's not boring. So make the intermissions feel like that at all times. That's my idea. Or maybe at the end of each course you could just get fired from a barrel and land right at the start of the next course. That's pretty seamless. Or just get rid of the intermission sections entirely. Man, I honestly think all the complaints I have with this game would simply evaporate if they just made a classic Grand Prix mode without any of the intermissions. And another thing, the computer characters are cheating a-holes, especially this guy. So Mario Kart has always had a negative feedback loop. where the players at the back of the pack are rewarded with powerful items to help them gain ground on the leaders, while the leaders are punished in order to even the playing field and make for tighter, more exciting and closer races. And getting a trio of red shells crammed up your Jackson just as you're about to cross the finish line is what we've all come to expect from Mario Kart. But in Mario Kart World, it feels way more pronounced and way more punishing than ever. It's the brutal Mario Kart we all know and love, but now much worse and much more unfair and stressful. And rumour has it that the game has a hidden dynamic difficulty system that ramps up if the player is driving too well, so you actually get punished more for drifting and tricking and driving skillfully. And you're more likely to win if you just drive casually and don't bother drifting or anything. My uncle who works at Nintendo told me that. But I think all this punishment is to blame on the SNES version. The developers took inspiration from the SNES version and looked to replicate the action of, quote, lots of racers bunched together jostling for position. But in my experience, that rarely happens in Mario Kart World. I don't really remember it happening much in the SNES version either. I don't know, maybe they were literally inspired by the cover art of the SNES version more than anything else. Because actually I feel like that's one area where World is really lacking. And generally I think it's one component of the formulae that they've never really perfected. Having a tight, chaotic race that still feels fair. Who knows, maybe this is as good as it gets, but in Mario Kart World, the rubber banding is off the chain. And what tends to happen is that there is a whole bunch of bunched upness that occurs for like the first 5 seconds, and then the pack quickly thins out. And then it's just you and one main rival NPC who either hounds your ass for the whole race or just shoots off ahead with a massive lead. Another scenario is that you're the one who gets an early lead and you wind up not seeing a soul for the entire race. But the bunched upness can return if your wheel so much as grazes the verge and you lose a bit of speed. And then that's when there'll be a whole pack of a-holes just bursting to pop you with a red shell as they fly past. And this is especially pronounced if you're trying to earn 3 stars in all the cups and knockout tours. That is a very grueling slog. And heed my words, sweet listener. Mario Kart World is way more fun if you're not trying to win at it perfectly. So where is the fun in Mario Kart World then? Well, the most fun I've had playing World is in the Versus mode. This is where it's at. The knockout tour is great for sure, but the open course option in Versus mode is where the traditional 3-lap races are buried. And this, for me, is where Mario Kart feels most confident and most complete. Again, aside from knockout tour. But Versus really lets you appreciate the immaculate course design by bypassing all the filler of the intermissions. But then again, there is another snag with the implementation, because you can only choose courses individually, and after you've completed a race, you're thrown back to the map screen to pick again. There's no way to let the game pick a course for you without getting any intermission tracks. Again, it's a tiny niggle, but it really highlights an annoying lack of customization. Being able to build your own Grand Prix would be nice. In fact, there's a distinct lack of customization options across the board. It'd be great to build your own racing playlists, create Grand Prix, plot out your own knockout tours across the map, set the weather and the weapons, choose the time of day. There's so many possibilities that have just been left impossible. It's a shame. And that is what scares me. So as I said earlier, the reason I'm scared is because I'm worried that Mario Kart World will remain in this state forever. I'm scared Nintendo will be stubborn and leave it unpatched and leave all these wrinkles unironed out. They won't fix the snags or address any of the issues. And there's a whole lackluster battle mode that I haven't even talked about, and that could do with some proper tweaking, but that's a whole nother thing. And another different thing. How would they go about adding additional DLC courses to this game down the line? Would they have to add an entirely new area to the map, like an extra island or something? Or would they just build courses onto the existing map? Like where there was once green fields, it's now Sunshine Airport. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But it could be that Nintendo are already decided and that they're happy with things the way they are. Or worse, they decide to make detrimental changes, as they have done so previously with the whole online course selection debacle. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. Nintendo can be stubborn and they can sometimes make baffling decisions that are somehow the opposite of what everyone wants, it seems. But Mario Kart is not an annual release. It's not something Nintendo churns out in the same way that EA farts puts out FIFA every year. No, Mario Kart is a system seller. And this is most likely it for Mario Karts on the Switch too. So I'd be surprised if they were to just let it sit there not doing anything. I mean, let's not forget that they added the booster course to Mario Kart 8 like 5 years after the game released on Switch 1. So you can never really rule out an update even years down the line. So, like I said, there is fun to be had playing Mario Kart World, but I think without the aforementioned issues being addressed, well then I'd find it hard to see Mario Kart World enduring as long as its predecessor. Certainly when it comes to the incredible sales success that Mario Kart 8 has achieved. But then, Mario Kart 8 really was a refinement of a decades-old series. And I think Mario Kart World is perhaps a creative shift that the series has long needed. And what with Mario Kart 8 having been around for like 10-something years at this point, so to just do another one that's basically the same thing would I think have resulted in much harsher criticism from wider audiences than the little nitpicks that I've outlined in this video. So I can see why they'd want to try something new and try and give players a fresh experience. But my point is, they could have easily have done both. Give us classic Grand Prix and Knockout Tour side by side. That would be the best of both Mario Kart worlds, wouldn't it? Yeah, come on. But as it is, 7 out of 10. Oh well. Like and subscribe.